Hello, once again to a new episode of Johns Hopkins Product Management Club. Uh, it's an amazing day today, Manish, and it's a good day to have a new podcast for the junior product managers getting into the industry. For those who are tuning in new today, my name is Akash, and this is Manish. Uh,
Hello.
Both of us are the engineering management graduate students at Johns Hopkins University. Uh, we have we have some experience in manufacturing as well as product management, but we are completely new as well, just like you guys. We want to explore this new domain, and we want to know how to break into product management. So, so before we get into what we are looking at today, so Manish, what are we discussing today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, let me just talk about why are we doing this 3 p.m. podcast. As you said, like we all are new to this field. I mean, we are want to break into product, and why specifically we are doing this podcast. Like we started this podcast because when we saw most of the podcast which is available right now in the market, like most of the people watch Lenny's. I'm a big fan of him. So all those podcasts are targeting people who are already a product managers who wants to upskill themselves. That's where we saw, okay, here's a gap which we should fulfill, and here's a gap where we can add value to, and it will eventually help us as well to learn to how to break into products. So that's when we started this 3 p.m. podcast. And so Akash, do you want to talk about like what would be the flow look like?
Yeah, sure. So let's get down to the flow. Like we'll be having a lot of Q&As in the middle of the session. So please add in your questions before like at every 10-minute intervals so that we can take them with the speaker. And at the end of the session, we'll have a resume review as well. So I think let's not waste more time. Let's just go directly into the podcast. Like, welcome to the 3 p.m. podcast. Let's bring up our speaker on stage, Keyuri Anand. Thank you so much for coming today.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure's mine,
Yeah.
guys. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having
Katie. I'll just take like another quick 1 minute to introduce a speaker to our audience. So, first of all, welcome Keyuri to our 3 p.m. podcast. So, Keyuri is like a seasoned product manager, which we can say is like she's working right now with Guidewire, and she has like a decade experience working in B2B SaaS. Also, she was like the founding member of SAP Product Management Academy, and she has mentored over like 250 plus PMs. So she has like experience in product strategy, career development, and she has like expertise to spans global product management practices, making her like a very insightful and invaluable for aspiring PMs like us. So yeah, thank you, Kayori, for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Mhm. Yeah, so to talk about, so before starting the question, I'll just give you a brief idea. We have divided our questions in various sections, like how was your career journey and breaking into PM look like, and how was the journey and for the preparing for the product management, how you transitioned from insurance industry to the current software industry, and what are the key skills competencies, and how networking helped you, how personal project or portfolio helped you. So moving for the first section, which is like career journey and breaking into PM. So if you can like start with and give us a walkthrough of your journey from starting into insurance industry to your current role in product management and
Sure.
Guidewire.
So as you mentioned, I started my career early in the insurance industry, working a few different roles in underwriting and claims adjusting. Just as they were implementing a new software product, that's the point where several years ago I got curious about product ownership and what do these software product owners do. Upskilled myself by getting some theoretical knowledge, but what really helped me kind of break into the space of product management was the domain knowledge, because I find, and this I find is a big lever that is under utilized in a lot of areas where people are trying to move into product management. They underestimate the power of domain knowledge that can help them get into that space. So I think for me, insurance has been that lever. I leverage the domain knowledge of insurance, and then over the years I've built my product management expertise such that I can, of course, guide people in the space of product management. But what really helps me excel and grow in my day-to-day job is the domain knowledge of insurance, and I keep building on it by staying um, informed as to what's happening in the industry, how it has evolved over the years, and how these massive amount of environmental, your wildfires, your earthquakes, your hurricanes, how that's impacting, and how these shift has been in the way software is built and sold to that specific industry. So yeah, don't underestimate the power of domain knowledge in your product management search.
Got it, got it. And that's so true. Like we always think like, oh, and for especially this happens to people who wants to pivot. But what you mentioned is like if you have a domain knowledge where you have certain experience and you are keeping yourself updated with the day-to-day technological update, that is what would be your key strength when you work as a PM and to move forward in your career. Got
Yeah.
it. Mhm. Yeah. So this you talk about. So if you have had a specific domain knowledge, so can you also talk about for a student who don't have like a formal PM experience, and how can they position themselves best to land their first PM role? Like if you can talk about the prior stage of your journey of getting into insurance as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, insurance happened by chance. So, I don't want to talk about that. I want to focus on what you can do, right, to get to the domain knowledge piece of it. And if you're a student, you've not worked anywhere, what have you. But the way I look at it is domain knowledge doesn't specifically just come from working in a specific industry. It comes from your interest. Like if you're big into gaming, everybody has interests, passions, what have you, right? If you're big into gaming, or if you're big into fashion, if you're big into understanding the different organizations that you know if you are impressed by things like Amazon, or the growth that Amazon has seen, or you're big into e-commerce and you're curious, we are all curious about something. You may be curious about how finance industry works or how manufacturing works. Your education, you may be like you guys are, right, from manufacturing industry, you were an electrical engineer, or if you're a mechanical engineer. We all have some of those things by the time we get to a stage where we are looking for a job. And I feel like you should totally leverage that interest and experience. And it's not because, yes, it will help you find a job, but when you do find a job, you will excel at it, because you will not find keeping up with the day to day what's happening in the industry. You will not find that as a chore. You will do it willingly. Like if you're a gamer, you're constantly reading about games, wanting to know about what's happening in that industry. Whether you are a PM or not, it doesn't matter. That's something you do day to day. So if you go in that direction as a PM, that gives you an edge, in my opinion, because everybody else is doing that as a job. You're doing it because you're passionate about this field. So
Mhm.
here are my like few steps to get to that space. Figure out what that space is for you. Learn a little bit, look at products, start by building your product sense, but with the caveat of that industry. So for example, if you are somebody who is interested in in this whole payment space, for example, understand what's happening news wise in that space, and then find a few companies that are niche but have grown rapidly in that space. For example, Klarna, or a firm, or some of those that are, this is new, right? It was not existing 10 years ago, this whole pay as you go. And the only form of credit you had years ago was a credit card, right? Or a line of credit or a loan. So these type of pay as you go organizations are new. do a deep dive in those, understand what they are, and have a point of view. Write a essay, or like a product teardown if it applies to that. Like if you're a gamer and a new game comes out, do a product teardown on that game, and you can find templates on what exactly a teardown has to have on the internet. There is abundance of it. If you need help with that, reach out to me. I'll hook you up with some templates as well. Um, but but do that, and then when you produce something, when you create something that highlights your knowledge, now you have domain knowledge in that space. You don't have to work in a gaming company to show that you understand this space. So that's what I mean.
Got it, got it. So yeah, so you're saying like every individual should understand or like find out their unique interest part, or like kind of we can say their unique superpower where they are more interested than anybody else, and then deep dive into that specific domain and learn, or like try to understand like which are the startups which has grown rapidly in this field,
Mhm.
and try to understand like what things they have done differently than the others, and learn from those things and have your own point of view in understanding the framework, or in understanding the leverage which those companies have used.
Exactly. And there is no right or wrong answer to this. Like your point of view could be completely flawed, but that's not the point. The point is to show and highlight that you understand this space better than other people who applied for the same job, if you know what I mean. It also helps you in your networking process, and um, it just makes things a little bit more streamlined than randomly applying to jobs on LinkedIn. Whatever
Mhm.
comes, this gives you a little bit more structured way of doing things. So if the way I look at it is, treat your product management career search as a product. What's
Mhm.
your USP? What is your goal? Identify those key drivers, shortlist 2 or 3 areas or fields or domains in which you think you would excel and you have more value to add, and then go from there.
That's great.
Okay, got it.
I mean, so this would be visible, Keyuri, in your interviews, as well as like when you're having an interview with the hiring manager. Probably when you're talking to him, you get to know, the hiring manager will get to know that, oh, he has insurance backgrounds. He can talk insurance basically. Uh, how do you, if you were a hiring manager, how would you see this domain knowledge in their resumes before that interview? Like how would you find such skills? Like do you check the DMs, the way they DM you, or do you have certain aspects of the resume that you can
There are a
quickly
couple of ways. Um, Things like insurance is very, very niche, and nobody has insurance expertise as a hobby. So that's different, right? That comes with either have you had any insurance related certifications, or have you worked in an insurance adjacent company, stuff like that. But for some little bit more other generic stuff that is open to the other side of things where I was talking about, right? Like how do you express domain knowledge when you haven't worked in that industry? If you worked in that industry, that's easy, it's evident, right?
Mhm.
So we'll leave that aside.
Yeah.
The harder challenge for folks who are listening to this podcast, which means the junior PMs, is that they've never maybe had a job in their life, or this is probably your first job or right out of college type of a role, right? So how do you express domain knowledge in that space? So one way hiring managers would look for is, what have you done in your portfolio? This is where portfolio becomes very, very valuable. And the way I tell a lot of my mentees is that if you are in that space, how do you get eyeballs on your portfolio, right? One way is to like apply for jobs and hope that somebody clicks on that portfolio link. But the other is to identify, say you have this domain of e-commerce. I want e-commerce space. I want to work in e-commerce space. I have knowledge, I have what have you. Then go one level deeper and identify your top 15 companies. Okay. And say Amazon, Nike, a whole bunch of e-commerce. Now let's take example. You have Nike as your target company. This is a bit of a longer route, but go and look up people in Nike who would value what you have come up with in your portfolio. And then cold DMs don't always work, but at least they have a chance of working when you do it. If you don't do it at all, then it becomes hard. You'd have to tap into networks, reach out to folks who are connected, like you guys reached out to me, and then if I have somebody who's interested in the insurance domain or fintech and I have connections, I can connect you. Those are your traditional ways. But even if you are connected, if you haven't done the basic legwork of informing yourself on that domain and building something in your portfolio, and that could be a case study, a product teardown, and with AI, it's actually very, very, very easy to build something that someone can use, but we'll get there hopefully later. Um, but build something, create something that shows you can go from 0 to 1 by yourself. Then you talk about that. When you have somebody listening to you, instead of talking theory, you can now say, "Hey, look, I did this case study. What do you think?" Or
Mhm.
what have you, right? You have a more informed discussion then than
Mhm.
random fluff.
Mhm. So here, Keyuri, I want to like follow up on the same portfolio aspect, and I want to like take a step back. And if you can elaborate more on this topic of portfolio, because most of our audiences are new, so they understand the term portfolio, but they won't be able to like get it specifically to product. Like what specific things they can add to their portfolio, and what would be like a tip for creating a standout product portfolio. If you can just spend like 2-3 minutes on explaining this process, it would really
Sure.
help.
So, a portfolio for product managers is very similar to what if you are a data analyst or an engineer, you are building stuff and you're putting it. It's like your GitHub repository, right? You have your passion projects in the portfolio. A few categories that I think is a must for a PM to have in their portfolio is, uh, especially if you're new, definitely do product teardowns. By product teardowns, just to give you a brief overview of product teardown, you're looking at a product, you're exploring it from a user's perspective, and you're talking about, what are the pros of that product, what works, what doesn't work. But then the teardown part of it is, if you are the PM for this product and you have a goal to either grow revenue or grow users or improve stickiness, whatever, you can take your pick what your goal is, and how would you approach that goal, and what would you change in the product. For example, if your growth is to get if your goal is to get more users, okay, and you are doing a teardown for a product like Canva, say, for example,
Mhm.
first section of your teardown is going to include what Canva does, what target market it addresses, what other target markets you would approach. Say, for example, the obvious target market for Canva is digital marketers and what have you. But what else which other group of people, customers, can Canva be useful? Educators, students, everybody who wants to build beautiful PowerPoint presentation, folks such as yourself who are doing podcasts, digital creators, all sorts of areas, right? So you put all of that. That shows that you can think outside the box. And if you were given the responsibility to go grow this product, how would you go about it? There's no right or wrong answer, but it shows the breadth of your understanding. And then the teardown part comes where, okay, if I wanted to improve the number of people coming through Canva portal to transition from free to paid version, if you put that as a goal, now you do a whole thought exercise of what is available in free version, what is available in paid, what would you change if you were the PM, and then build a point of view. Again,
Mhm.
don't be afraid to make the right or make the wrong decision, because there is no right or wrong. What Canva does and what Canva PMs may decide to do varies drastically, and there is a lot of data points that you don't have access to because you're not part of that business. So you will not be able to make a fully foolproof analysis of this, but based on, you want to show based on the data that you have available, what would you do? And that shows that you can think like a PM. That's the goal of a portfolio. So tear
Mhm.
down one, do
Mhm.
case studies, on things like I mentioned, right? The growth of Klarna, the growth of pay-as-you-go type services. Do some research on whatever domain you choose. What was the software space 10 years ago? What are the new players? What are they doing? One easiest one now to add to your portfolio is how is AI impacting that domain. And if you were a PM who was given the charge to explore AI use cases, list out 5 or 10 use cases and elaborate on each of those use cases on how you would explore those. And yeah, like seek out ways to highlight different aspects of your product management knowledge.
Mhm.
Got it.
Uh,
Yeah, Akash, go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry if you have. I just had like a interesting question.
Mhm.
I mean, so you talk about portfolios. Coming back to what you were talking about AI just a few minutes ago, like I see a lot of students using AI on LinkedIn to just like make a post, just make some random AI generated content about some product, which you can figure it out like just by reading it. So how do you how do you ask us like to like how do you like want us to use AI in the right way and make sure that we are not like misusing it, or like making sure that we have the right foot forward when it comes to like showcasing our talent.
So I'm not entirely against generating content using AI if you can put your own spin on it, right? Like you said, if somebody just generated something on ChatGPT and copied and pasted it, we've all used it for a couple of years now. We know, we can tell the difference. I'm more a proponent of the difference between generate and create. Use AI to create something. So build an AI agent, build a PRD for what an AI agent looks like. Do some research on what that looks like, right? What type of an AI agent? First of all, do some research on what an AI agent is. I don't want to spend this podcast talking about that. But even if you're an aspiring PM, if you get a PM job, right, I can for sure guarantee you that whatever domain you're going into, whatever industry, whatever company you're going into, in the next 5 years, they will, if they aren't already doing it, they will want to have AI powered products or use cases, right? So it's only in your best interest to at least inform yourself about what AI is, where it's going. I'm not asking you to, you know, become machine learning engineers or anything, but the basic user side of things you should know at least. And we all know a little bit about it by generating content, right? We generate content, we generate images, headshots, whatever. Now think about creating using AI. So generating is you generate using already available services, right? Your chat GPT or whatever. Um, but what can you create using these same services? So for example, you're in your job search journey. What would a bot or a co-pilot for job search look like? That's one use case which all of your listeners will be familiar with. I really encourage you to start there. If you don't know where else to start writing a PRD on all the things. What are the goals of a co-pilot? I just came up with this, by the way, so let me just think this through a second. But
Okay.
I think this is the easiest use case for somebody in your shoes to start with. Write a PRD on what a bot or a co-pilot for job search would do, what capabilities would they have, and then do a thought exercise on generative AI or large language models aren't perfect. So what are list out all the things that can go wrong with it. And for sure use ChatGPT to do this research, but for the love of God, write it yourself. Because yeah, people have used this. Everybody has access to the same resources you do. So you're not fooling anybody by copying and pasting it. And you're taking that learning opportunity away from yourself. So you're doing a disservice to yourself more than anybody else.
And
Got
that
it. Got
makes
it. And yeah, and that I mean, absolutely, it makes sense. And at this point, I mean, I want to add this thing. So I and Akash, we both went to a tech crunch last week. and SF. And out of like 200 startups which were there, 164 startups were working the AI part, as you mentioned, right? If your company is not yet in the transition phase, they are behind, and definitely most of the company would be eventually transitioning into AI. So yeah, it absolutely makes sense to like learn about AI agent and like start using those AI. Actually, so in our university itself, like our professors are encouraging, like most of them are started encouraging us to use AI. It's just that you have to refer them legitimately, and they promote using AI so that at the end our quality of work should improve.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that you do on a day-to-day basis, think of how you can automate this with a digital bot. Agents are exactly that. They are robots that can do tasks, but they're digital. They aren't like, what was the name of the one that
Yeah.
Elon Musk launched once? So it's a physical robot. I'm talking about digital
Okay.
bots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Got it, got it. So Kayuri, moving forward, you
Mhm.
mentioned about like portfolio is very important part of like when you recruit someone. So based on your hiring experience, if you can highlight what other qualities do you look into like entry level candidates apart from, let's suppose they have like 3 4 projects, one is from like tear down, one is from case study, and some other chatbot or some data analysis part, tableau dashboard or something. So apart from the portfolio, what things you look into an entry level candidates once they have their resume in front of you?
Questions when I'm asking, the goal that we have is to understand at what level can this person communicate. Can you communicate to engineers at that technical level, and then at the same time do you have the ability to explain that same thing to a senior executive who's more on the business side, and can you explain that concept in a layman's term? So one example is APIs, right? When you explain what is an API to an engineer, or when you're talking about an API with an engineer, the language and the lingo and the way you communicate is very different than if you're explaining what an API is to a CFO, for example, right? So that's one, communication. How you communicate, can you tailor your communication and cater to the right audience the right way? That's number one. The second one is your problem solving and analytical skills, and I don't mean how well you analyze data, because we have bots that do that, but can you look at a problem from an objective way, and can you step by step methodologically think about it and be like, okay, this is the goal, this is where I want to get, here are the steps I'm going to take. Can you have that clarity of thought and succinctly express that? Those are
Okay.
the two main things. Domain knowledge is good. If the role requires domain knowledge, definitely domain knowledge is an added advantage. And I would ask a few questions to understand what level of that domain knowledge do you have. But beyond that, yeah, how you think, how you problem solve, and then communication. These are the two biggest things. And I would suggest the audience for this podcast is for you to kind of get better at these, is to do a lot of interview practice. Like there is a whole ton of material available online on interview questions that some of the um, big seven companies ask. Uh, Even in smaller or mid-sized companies, or companies that are just as big but not on the big seven list, the type of questions don't change much. So if you practice those with a fellow person, two people role practice,
Mhm.
instead of doing it in your head, if you say it out loud, it really, really, really helps you show up in a very confident manner in those discussions. So please practice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's so true. Like thinking out loud is definitely adds more value than thinking on your brain. And absolutely, I agree with you. What you mentioned, apart from portfolio, communication is a key. How you communicate with different stakeholders, what, because everyone is interested in different uh, what you can say, like everyone has their own interests, so how you communicate and prioritize their interest is very critical. And then secondly is the problem solving skills. So I want to understand more, Keyuri, for the communication part, specifically when you communicate with the engineers. So many of the people, for example, us as a management student and many MBAs as well, when they get their first PM job, so most of them are not from a CS background. They don't have a coding experience as such. So how well they should be versed with the technical knowledge when they are communicating with an engineer? For example, you mentioned specifically about API. So is it expected like a PM should have one have at least like used API in any of the product so that he should be able to communicate, or is just the language which a PM needs to learn when they communicate with specifically with the engineers?
Okay, so the level of technical knowledge you need really depends on the product you're managing. Like if you're managing a platform type product where your end users are other developers, definitely a lot more technical expertise is required. If you're managing like an app or a product that say for example customer service reps or other folks or individuals like you and I are using, not so much. But having said that, you don't need to know how to code necessarily, but as a PM you do need to understand how software products are built. So understanding the stack really helps you. I've seen successful PMs who don't understand so much the technical side of things, and they represent the business side of things a lot more, the actual revenue aspect of it, um, and the user's interests a lot more. I was that PM for a very long time, but at the same time, so it's not table stakes for your success. But having said that, if you understand the game, it becomes a lot more fun and you have a lot more leverage when you can talk to engineers and explain things or understand what they are trying to tell you, what their challenges are, and you can kind of level with people at the same sort of level. This game becomes a lot more fun and it gives you a lot more leverage to get to people, to convince people. Because remember, PM roles are one where you don't really have a lot of authority. You don't have developers who you manage per se. You're not a line manager, so you're relying on a lot more leverage and ability to convince people to go with your idea without having any, like you're not their direct manager, so you're not going to be able to tell developers, hey, do this, and they will say, yes ma'am, I'll do it. That's not how this works, right? So you have to have a lot of influence without any authority. And understanding the language to use that the person that you're talking to understands and their drivers really gives you that edge.
Mhm.
um,
God.
some actionable insight, if I was to tell you, couple of things that I recommend to all my mentees at least to do. One is, Marty Kagan. Read his book if you haven't read it, the first one.
Mhm.
And then the second thing I would suggest for you to do is pick up any, if you're really not from CS background and you basically have zero understanding on how software is built, pick up the CS 101 course, or CS 50 even course. It's available on Udemy. I believe it's from
Stan-
MIT or Harvard
yeah,
or
yeah, I've seen it, but yeah, I guess one of the three institution like top. You can at least
yeah, it's a
explain.
CS 50 course. It lays down the basics. Even an eighth grader understands, can go through that course, and I have seen it. I have proof that eighth graders can do this course. It's really basic, but it gives you this understanding of how software is built, and it really enables you with the right language to use. Um, so I would suggest do these two things as actionable in terms of, do you need tech knowledge or not? You definitely don't need to code.
All right.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
makes a lot of sense. I mean, like, I really like how you broke it down for us, and it makes a lot of sense for us in our preparation as well. Like, I would just add like a quick question to that. So we have the domain knowledge covered. We have the other question, technical aspect of the interview covered. So I've also heard that people ask estimation questions in the job interview, uh, but I don't know how much relevant it is. And because we have this exponent courses online, like where many people tell us to do the exponent, like learn how to do estimation problems. How relevant is that to an actual job interview?
I want to say it's subjective to the type of roles you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And if the role that you're applying for is heavy on the data side, uh, then definitely yes. If you're looking for B2B SaaS spaces, not so much. I have not asked an estimation um,
Oh,
question in my interview, so it's very subjective. You should be able to find um, directories or resources online where they list the type of questions that at least the big seven companies ask, um, and that should tell you which companies and which type of roles actually have the estimation questions or not, which don't.
okay. But most of them, like and from a startup to a mid-scale level, most of them will not be asking you. I'm assuming uh, such estimation questions we might be okay with.
Yeah, I want to say that's correct. But my level of confidence in that answer is pretty low. I have not come across it so much to know for sure yes or for sure no.
All right, no problem. I mean that actually helps a lot to just like get an idea of how it works.
Mhm.
Do you recommend any like frameworks that we need to use while we're answering questions in the job interview?
That's a very interesting question. And as much as I have a bit of a spicy opinion on that, um, if you're going for the big seven and you're doing exponent, they will recommend you different frameworks that you should use. There is a circles and there's a few other frameworks.
Mhm.
The way I want to say that is, if adhering to that framework is going to take away your attention from what you want to say and convey, then it's okay to use that as a guardrail, not as a must do this or else I'm not getting this job type of a thing, right? Do that as a guardrail or a checklist in your mind to say, have I covered all these spot? Or again, right? Think about it. What I mentioned to you earlier, in interviews, we are looking for, can you think methodically? Can you go from point A to point B to point C that takes you to the end goal in a step by step methodological method? And these frameworks are, they do exactly that. So if you can convey your message in a step by step manner with your own twist, go for it. I don't see a problem with that. But if
Mhm.
you're so new that you have no idea how to think about something, then those frameworks are very, very helpful. But adhering to them shouldn't take away from your confidence to answer the question. It shouldn't throw you off if you forgot one and you're like fumbling in the middle of the question. That's where practice
Yeah.
comes a lot handy.
Gotcha. I mean,
Use that as a tool.
I think Manish and me, we both should like practice today.
Yeah.
But yes, these are like some really actionable insights. I mean, Manish, I hope we have them like covered. I mean, recorded. We'll just go through them again later on.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. At least we are gonna start using the practical insights, like whatever Keyuri is mentioning, and we are gonna like word of mouth it to everyone, saying like, okay, you should definitely start looking into all those things.
Agreed. These are like some very yeah, like common questions that we always keep getting in our mind. Like that's why we wanted to just clarify it for our users as well. I mean, like our audience. Uh, if it's okay with you, can we just go? Can we move to our like next portion of our podcast, which is like the resume review, and then we'll have some closing questions with like me and Manish as well. If there's any audience questions, we can take it that time as well.
Sure. I'm
So
going to put on my glasses if you're going to let make me see stuff. But yes,
I'll take some time to pull it up till then you can like adjust.
yeah.
uh, So let's see. Mhm. Screen. Yeah. Hope it's okay. It's not yet visible. Okay, it is visible. So this is one of our own like classmates. We got one from our classmate. So it might be relevant or irrelevant. I'm not sure, but this is technically our one of our resumes. So you can just go through it and just see if there's any like major red flags. It's just like your own personal preference. We're not holding you against it.
Yeah, you
Uh,
can add your insights out, like what things are wrong in it or what could be improved. You can just give your feedback on it as an hiring manager.
like first glance against like this is like the first glance, like how it will look like, and then like what makes you interested towards. I think
Yeah.
this was.
So let me don't zoom in or out for a second. Let me read through what I see. First of all, I really like how you have the skills up top, because as a hiring manager, if that's where my attention is going immediately, then I know, okay, these are good. This person has what I need. Okay, they have this expertise, or at least the skill set in, say, SQL or Python or what have you. So that's good. Um, I would suggest that since you have some experience down below, um, the relevant courses don't really matter as much to me as a matter of preference. I don't really care much what certificates you have and what you don't. I do care about an impact statement, like who are you, where are you wanting to go, that kind of stuff. What do you see yourself as? Because it's possible that you may have product management intern expertise, sorry, experience, but you are wanting to become a data engineer or something else, right? So, and even if you have established that you have more interest in a specific area of product management, like growth PM or a apps PM or a platform PM or API PM, for example, I would highlight that here. You can look up some resources online on what makes a good impact statement. Definitely use ChatGPT to draft it out, but please don't copy and paste it. Just refine it a little bit more.
You mean those summary statements, or like the ones you put on top, like right below your name, like you say like
Yeah.
I have certain so and so experience, and I want to get into this domain.
Yeah.
I have this much
So,
interest.
for example, if I was to write it off the top of my head, I would say seasoned B2B SaaS product manager, really passionate about mentoring other PMs, and would love to. I thrive on building high achieving, high impact teams. Then, when you read that, you have this mental model of who I am, and I love mentoring people. I love giving back to the community, and I'm also very interested in AI or whatever that may be. Now you have a mental model of who I am, and then you can see that and see if it matches with what I'm looking for in this role.
Okay. So
Mhm.
just want to add, Keyuri. So you're saying it for like a person who has an experience or like someone who just want to break into product. Everyone should have like a summary statement.
Everyone should have an impact statement, it's called, because it gives a what you have here, right? In resume, we all have tangible stuff. None of it tells the reader who I am as a person. That impact statement is my opportunity to talk about who I am as a person. Right? I'm super passionate about mentoring people, and I mentor people. I mentor kids in their robotics. I mentor people. So that tells you that I'm a person passionate about mentoring. Now, if you have a role, if you're considering me for a role that is not going to give me that opportunity, you at least know that, okay, she likes to do this, but this role is not for her, but maybe this other role is for her, something like that. you understand who I am without meeting me. That's kind of the goal.
Okay,
And
so
kind of the area where that should have your secret sauce. That's
so
sent
it is
to
like adding a character to a resume.
yeah, and it's that's your secret sauce. That 2 or 3 sentences will tell the hiring manager what you are passionate about, and that separates you from other people.
Got it. So, Kayuri, I have also seen like many people writing a recommendation line from like if they have got it from like VP or C from the senior, they usually write it at the near the like what you mentioned as a summary statement, right? So people use that as well. Like, so do you have your perspective on like which should be there, like a recommendation or a summary statement, which has a more impact?
I personally feel a summary statement has more impact because that tells me what you think about yourself, and how it also shows me that you know how to highlight your strengths in 2 sentences, which makes me confident that you will be able to highlight the product strengths as well. So personally, I have a personal bias for summary statements, but all of this is so um, subjective, right? Depending on who's reading it, there is no right or wrong answer.
Mm. Yeah. So do you have like more comments? Akash, can you just scroll down a bit?
Let me read this quickly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So is there some quick?
So I will highlight what I really like about this resume. This is very well made resume. It has stats, right? Executed SWOT analysis and pinpointed 5 billion in new revenue potential. This is good. This can be a good conversation starter. Like, can you explain to me how did you calculate this new revenue potential? So if you're putting something there, definitely like make sure you can back it up with a reasonable explanation, because those are where the questions land. And that's how I like to understand if you wrote something here, right? For example, for each you did this analysis that increased target market strategies, targeted marketing strategies. My question to this person would be, great, you did this analysis. What were the steps taken that led to this result? Because analysis is a theoretical assessment of the data that you have. You have to, what were the actionable insights that you gave that came out of this that resulted in this goal? Because analysis and goal, there is definitely an actionable insight step in between. So I would ask this person, what were the actionable insights? And then that would give me a sense of, does this person know what they're talking about? So definitely like be prepared for those type of questions. And having the tangible results that your work did is a very, very good idea to have in your resume, and bold it just like this, um, because it shows that you can focus on impact rather than just the output that you're producing. You can focus on, do you all know the difference between outcome and output, right? So
Yeah.
you're not just focusing on output, but your resume is more outcome focused. How did it move the business forward? Because as much as we like to say product management is this sexy thing that lets you build all these products, if it doesn't sell, you can if it doesn't scale, if it doesn't sell, there's not a lot you can. It's very short term to think that, right? So scaling and selling the product is the business that we are in, whether we like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's very well
Yeah.
put. Thank
You
you so
have
much.
points on this? Like,
If you have anything else like to add, we can move to the next session.
One thing I would add here, so couple of things, I like the way this is laid out. Couple of things I would add is, one is the impact statement and link. Can you scroll all the way up real quick?
Oh,
Link.
I removed the name
I
and
guess we
No,
removed it. So
link
this
the
person
portfolio
was,
is
yeah,
what.
okay,
this
okay.
person was
Gotcha.
having a LinkedIn link, GitHub link, and his personal website link. So
That's perfect. Yeah. So yeah,
So
those.
you mean it should be a GitHub? GitHub works, or do you think a Drive link, or like what kind of
Works,
links?
Drive link works. I've seen people build Notion sites. Anything works.
Okay.
That's, there is no
Okay.
You are more technical, or you have GitHub link where you have other stuff that you have done, right? Data analysis or SQL projects and what have you. Then GitHub is, keep it simple for the person to access. Like, don't put 5 different places that they have to go and see. Keep it all in one place, and anything works. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. I mean, you can probably find like a little bit of positive and negatives in this as well. I think
I
uh,
find this one very
type.
jarring, not very clearly organized.
Yeah, I
So
guess there's a formatting issue here.
yeah, take the format of the previous one and layer it on top of this. Definitely highlight skills up top. So impacts. So the top to bottom should look like your LinkedIn or portfolio link, impact statement, skills, and then work experience. And then down further below, if you have any leadership experience, like the previous person mentioned, if you have room and you are super passionate about some community give back type of activities that you have done for a long period of time, definitely add that there, but only if you spend 10% of your time on that or more. Don't add it just for the sake of adding it. Only add it if you're super passionate about, like, for example, if you're passionate about dogs and you every Sunday you are at the Humane Society volunteering, and it's part of your personality, do
Mhm.
it. If you volunteer just to get volunteer hours, or then don't add it.
Mhm.
If it's part of your personality and you're passionate about it, add it.
Yes, I mean that makes a lot of sense. Like I've seen like people just adding random leadership experiences sometimes, like from 4 years ago in some school, and that actually it doesn't become relevant to the job role. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean, if there's any other additions, we can look into it. But I think we can move forward as well, like with the
Yeah.
closing statements. Uh,
So,
so
Akash, if you mind, I have like one
sure,
last
sure.
question to ask Keyuri before going to the closing note. So, Keyuri, just wanted to like end with this last question. So, based on like previous mentoring experience, so what are the most common challenges which you have seen like the new PMs like come up with, and how can they overcome them? If you can like talk about like 2 minutes on this.
So it's a very generic challenge, but one that any new person faces is there is so much advice on internet, but all of that advice is about what you should do. Nobody teaches you how to do it. So, any
Hmm.
advice that I'm giving to my mentees, I'm very much focused on actionable steps that you can take. Everybody says build a portfolio. Nobody talks about what a good portfolio should have, how to go about it, what are step 1, 2, 3 to get there. So, I think that the how and the step by step of do this, do this, do this, and then once you have that plan, you execute on it. I find
Mhm.
that kind of a lot of new folks suffer from, and then it's just so much advice that you don't know which one to go and where to put your energy and time, which you don't have
Mhm.
a lot of if you're students as well.
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, I find that that's what they struggle with, and I solve that by giving them actionable insights on do this, do this, do this. And then also that structure it. If you are in a state where you don't have a decent portfolio or a proper LinkedIn, don't waste your time practicing interview questions yet. Do what comes first. You need a decent LinkedIn you need a proper portfolio with at least 4 or 5 different things in it. You need to be already actively networking. You need to have all of that pat down in a process before you start spending your time on interview practice. Once you have all of that, then spend some time interview practice, get ready for interviews.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And definitely it makes 100% sense, because even when we look out for any information, it's like 100 of page shows up and 100 of write-ups is like do this, do this. Everyone has their individual frameworks to how to tackle a single problem. It becomes very difficult to find out which should we actually we should follow.
Can I give one more advice, even though you
Yeah,
didn't ask?
sure.
But I think I see a lot of college folks who've not been in the workforce struggle with this assumption that if you don't get a job in the big seven companies, you're not successful. Can I debunk that myth? There are a lot, and I mean a lot, of high paying jobs in the what you call boring business, the B2B SaaS space. And if you ask me, I feel they are more stable as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
the amount of layoffs that your big sevens have had in the last couple of years, I haven't seen nearly as many in your Salesforce or SAP or not sexy by any means, but still a great amount of learning, good career trajectory, good, you know, stable long-term career that provides you with funding for education, funding for invest in your career growth and growth as a person. Um, so I think don't discount those. Young people like to say, "Oh, I got a job with Google," and tout that. Don't discount
Yeah.
the smaller up and coming AI firms like Perplexity, Cohere, all of those if you are in AI or machine learning, and the bigger your Salesforce equivalents or Workday or Ceridian, those companies, don't discount them. They are the ones that actually run the world.
Mm. Yeah, and that's so true, and like kind of like a gem advice, because most of people hear like, okay, I want to get into Mag, I want to get into top 15, top 20, but this is so true. Like the startups which are like early stage or like Series C or Series B, they pay more than what actually you get. And the top tech company and the B2B sectors which you mentioned, they're definitely, their job is more stable compared to the top tech companies.
Yeah. And when you are young and you don't have all the other challenges or worries that comes with having a family to support, you can move from, one job to the next and really optimize for learning than optimizing for money in the early days. So don't limit yourself to the big seven because there's a lot of competition there, and if you get in, that's great. I'm not saying don't go for it, definitely go for those, but also keep your horizons open because there's a lot of other good jobs available out there that will help your career just as much, if not even more actually.
Mm, got it, got it.
That's
Yeah.
that's very nice advice, Keyuri. I mean, I hope people get the jobs they're looking for right now. It's a very hard market right now, and right now after the elections as well, like many people are very confused. How is the situation going to be for us as a junior product manager? So I mean, it's a hard road to go. We're going one step at a time.
Yep, hang in there, and I'm here to help. If anybody needs any help, you feel free to reach out to me. If you haven't understood this yet in the last 1 hour, I really, let me like put it out there, I really like helping people. Talking to young folks or people who are new in their career helps me learn a lot. It's not one sided. It's I seek out knowledge and new fresh ideas from you guys just as much. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need help. I'll do what I can.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. That
Yeah,
means a lot.
thank you. Thank you, Kayuri, for joining in the session and sharing your valuable advice. And thank you all who tuned in for taking out your time. And we hope we might have added a lot of knowledge to your time. And we look forward to seeing you all in our next week podcast. So yeah, stay tuned
Thank
for
you.
that as well. On that note, uh, the 3 p.m. podcast, Akash and I signing out. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so